doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Here we're live with Kelsey. Shannon came out of hibernation today, so be nice to him. He's waking up slowly.
Yeah. I've only had 6 cups of coffee, not my normal 10. So bear
me
with
too.
me.
I had a whole pot of coffee to stay awake because
we're a live wire because we're already been going at it.
Yes,
I have seen the promised land. I've seen the great photo.
Oh yes. For those of you who don't know what Kelsey's talking about, any chance I can to whip this picture out.
Yeah.
We were talking about comic book collections. I said, I think I have a few comic books.
Mine literally is not even a fourth of that, maybe.
And there's still comics behind me. It's just that I couldn't get them. This is all my red comics. I still have 20 long boxes of unread comics that I've been making videos of.
Oh my God. See, that's what I was getting at. You were talking about having a conversation with Gail Simone about how many comics, and it's about if you love comics. And I was thinking it's also about if you've read those comics, because I've realized that I've picked up a lot of comics over the years and I've only read a fraction of them. So yes. I've been trying to go back and read through all my Batman adventures and things like that, things that I really liked visually, as an artist, now it's like, oh, let's see which one has the real meat. Which one's going to keep me hooked in?
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember back in college, I was dating a woman who owned a comic book store, and she asked
lucky.
I know. She's the only girl I'm not allowed to talk about with my wife.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see.
And she asked me, she goes, "Oh, how big is your stack?" And I'm thinking it's a dirty question. So I'm like, I'm starting to undo my. No, she goes, "No, calm down." She goes, how many comics do you have that you didn't read? She goes, "Every comic book collector has an unread stack." And at this point, I didn't, because I was just out of college and I was able to. So she gave me so many comics that by the time we ended, I had about 6 long boxes of unread comics, and now I'm up to 20. So now I call that the curse of Liz. It's before her, I was always up to date, but
I went and bought John Byrne's She-Hulk trade a few weeks ago, and the guy running the shop was just looking at me, and he was just like, "Really?" And I was like, "I haven't read it. Come on, it looks great." I've loved John Byrne in the past. I'm sure it's fun. And I did. I really enjoyed it. It's real kind of like Screwball.
I John Byrne and George Perez, I always say that they're like atoms on it. They rotate. Like, ask me tomorrow and I'll say George Perez. Ask me the day after that. But they're like my 2 favorite, comic book artists,
Perez is like a huge black hole in my comic book knowledge, and like it's funny because I a guy that you started off as my inker, and then I ended up inking him. He was like always George Perez, and I've known other people that were like George Perez, and I've kind of looked it over, and it just never really, like, for some reason it didn't like sink into me. Not that I don't appreciate what the guy's done, but I've been needing to do my deep dive on like Wonder Woman and Avengers and all the great works that he's been contributing to. So I know there's a George Perez fan in here somewhere, because I never thought I'd like Kirby, but now I kind of love Kirby.
Well, George Perez always has a soft spot in my heart, because I still remember my first 3 comics that I ever bought with my own money. Like, I have older brothers and sisters, so comic books were always in the house. But the first 3 comic books I ever bought with my own money was Fantastic Four 186, and it's George Perez, inked by Joe Sinnott.
Oh, wow.
Avengers 154. The cover is by Jack Kirby, but the inside is George Perez, inked by Pablo Marcos, rather.
Yeah.
And then Thor, I think 186, something like that. Walt Simonson. So I'm like, these are people that I just. How can I not be a crazy comic book freak when you know what I mean?
What year was that?
1974, 75.
Oh my God. I don't mean to age you here, but I was born in 75.
Yeah.
It's not the age, it's the mileage, because we look very similar. Maybe I've gone through a lot more of the ringer. Maybe
it's the battle of the beards tonight. Yeah. Tonight, the Council of Elrond The Count Elrond has convened. Boom! Let us decide the fate of Middle Earth right here.
I mean, I came into comics like I used to want to be a truck driver. You know, I wanted to like drive a boat. Like I wanted to go into the Navy at one point. Comics art was just something I was, you know, I doodled when I was a kid. I doodled trucks, things that I wanted to like drive and do things when I, you know, and then my mom got me, she knew I was interested in trucks. So she got me a US1 trucking comic book.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
But years later, I found out had a Michael Golden cover, and he ended up being one of my all-time favorites when I was kind of getting interested in comics.
Michael Golden's Micronauts is just that was like my religion for when I was in grammar school. You know, me and my friends were deciphering the languages, and you know, we knew it was a blatant Star Wars ripoff, but we didn't care. We were kids. We loved it.
Of which one?
The Michael Golden Micronauts.
Oh, the Micronauts stuff. Yeah. I think that some people think that that's even better than Star Wars, if not.
Well, yes. Since it hasn't been destroyed, it held up better. We'll leave it at that. I wanted to get what your comment about Jack Kirby.
Oh yeah.
When I was a kid, if you said Marvel Comics to me, I'm sure everybody's sick of me saying this, but Marvel Comics to me was John Buscema, George Buscema. Yeah. You know, because even John Byrne at this point when I was talking was a newcomer. Jack Kirby was old people's comics, like you know, like I didn't like that. That was old fashioned, you know. I'm like, and then the more I started to appreciate comic books, around this time, my local comic book store opened up, and like I started working there, and I started seeing like the contribution that Jack Kirby. You know, I was an ignorant kid, so I started to respect Jack Kirby, but I still didn't like him. You know, I was like. These big sausage fingers, and ugly women, you know, and blah, blah. And now to this day, it's like if you say you don't like Jack Kirby, I'm just like, dude, we got a problem. You know, we got to step outside and solve this. You know,
well, I mean, I've never really like considered him. Like to me, it's like I was all into John Buscema. I had the Marvel How to Draw Comics, the Marvel Way. There was Jack Kirby in there, but I was like, I gravitated more towards some of the other guys in the book, even John Romita a little bit, but I wasn't even into his stuff. And up to the point where I've done 20 years in comics, by the time I met David Williams and was working with him and hanging out, and he was all about John Romita and Kirby, and he got me to look more into it, really. And once you start digging in and once it gets its hooks into you, there's almost nothing better. Kirby, I've yet to see anybody that can distill the purity of the dynamic comic book down any better than he has. Nobody, not even Toth, is like a whole other thing. Way too complicated. Kirby just gets to the heart of it right immediately.
Like you could argue the anatomy, you could argue, you know, the technicality or even the draftsmanship, but you cannot argue the imagination and you cannot argue the action.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
That you know that is it. You know,
I mean, the creativity involved in some of that stuff. That's like a whole other ball game because you can talk about the art all you want. You're never going to touch that imagination.
No,
never. When I think about it, even now, I just want to like slap myself. I'm like, I'm being way too like pedestrian with this stuff. I need to get my head out of reality and start thinking fantastical. I mean, that's what the comic book is all about. You know, even Buscema, as freaking amazing as he was still very rooted in reality. I mean, they called him the Rembrandt of comics, right? So, one of the best.
Yeah, you know, these were people like when I close my eyes and I daydream. You know, for most of my life, it was like a John Buscema. Even before I knew these names as a kid, you know what I mean? Because like everybody in my family, I got 6 brothers and sisters. We were traveling by station wagon, going up to visit my grandparents. So my father knew if I just bought this kid like 75 cents worth of comic books, which at the time was like a stack of comics, I wanted the kids to shut up. You know, so I would sit in the back of the station wagon, you know, let my brothers and sisters fight and get smacked by my dad, you know, but I was, you know, quiet, and then I would close my eyes and like, you know, my daydreams were in 4 colors. See,
you were my friend Robin, and when I was a little kid and G.I. Joe was on TV and Transformers, and I had my first best friend, I guess, when you throwing around, oh, my best friend.
Yeah.
He was a rabid comic book fan, and I got to know him for, G.I. Joe or something else, or just because we were at school together. But I'd go over to his house and he'd have a shelf, not long boxes. It was just like a shelf like this one. But the comics were just stacked up. So I just go and grab like a handful of them. I'd be hanging out at his house. His mom would make us like cut up apples and stuff. And we'd sit out on the porch and look at comics. And I reconstructing my memory of like the first comics I ever saw. One of those in that group, there was Alpha Flight from John Byrne. And also the Wolverine #1 by Buscema. It was like one of the first comic books I ever looked at.
Wow.
So, and it's just funny when I'm going back and thinking about this stuff, about the sort of pedigree that I had early access to just randomly. And then I would be, years later, I go into high school. This is right before the Image boom. So you had Liefeld doing New Mutants going into X-Force. You had Jim Lee doing the new X-Men. You had McFarlane doing Spider-Man. I mean, comics, and you had that commercial, that Button Fly Jean commercial. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was on the school bus, and somebody had that Mark Texeira Ghost Rider that had the puffy glow in the dark skull.
Yeah, and it was like you touch it, it was like very like
yeah.
But
I was blown away. I was like, this is comic books. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen, And then to top it off, the same time, this is how big comics were right at that moment. I was in math class in junior high, and the class was just going crazy. Nobody's paying attention. Everybody's talking in their various corners. And I look over, and the teacher is just sitting at his desk behind his briefcase. I'm like, what is with this guy? Why isn't he doing anything with this class? So I walked over, and as I'm coming around the briefcase, it's filled with Spider-Man comics. And he's over there reading the Spider-Man comic. And I just immediately forgot why I was even over there. And I was like, what are you doing? What is this? Where do you get these at? And he's like, oh, you get them from a comic book store. And I was, immediately I'm like, where? Tell me where. And, he was reading a McFarlane Spider-Man. So,
so you remember when comic book stores started showing up?
Comic book stores.
You remember the newsstand and then the transition to comic book stores?
No, it was kind of, that's the thing. Like, I think when it really found me, it was like after a lot of us, it was like becoming ubiquitous, where you turn on Late Night with David Letterman and Rob Liefeld is there, things like that. So it's impossible to ignore, but I think that was already, the machine was already well and good and oiled. The comic book store had its cash registers at that point, and it was a business, but there were more stores growing by the day. New stores were opening, and I was in Dallas, and we had, 7 that I can think of. And here in Louisiana right now, there's 2. Of course, it's Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's not that big as,
Yeah, I live in New York. I'm in Long Island, and they used to be like, I remember like every once in a while I'd be like, I'm gonna go on the comic book run, and I would just go, and every town had a comic book store, and I'd just spend the entire day just going from comic book store to the comic book store. Mm-hmm. Now, I moved into this house 3 years ago, and I'm looking at the house. I just said to my wife, if only there's a comic book store nearby, this house is perfect. So my wife, there's one right around the block, but your boy Zach at Diversity Comics, it's a Funko Pop store that only has back.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then one opened up around the block for me that I could walk to. It opened up a year ago and it closed maybe 3 weeks ago.
Oh no. Yeah, that we got 2 that I know of. There's probably a little pop up here and there or something, or somewhere too far away from me. But the ones that we have are 100% comics, thankfully.
Yeah, there's one new comic books, and it's 2 old timers, and and it's like a bodega. They got the cat walking across the comic. And the cat. As soon as you walk in, the cat comes up to you. He wants pets.
Yeah.
And you talk to them, and it's just doom and gloom. Every month it's going less and less, you know, to the point like I go in there, it's like I have to like sit in my car and brace myself because it's like, again, doom and gloom. Who wants doom and gloom, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the business is changing. I don't think comics are going anywhere. It's just the business of it is
Peaks
changing.
and valleys, yes.
I definitely, I mean, unless there's another big boom, I keep hoping that out of this indie boom that we're having now, thanks to the fans and crowdfunding, I keep hoping that at one point we're going to get that. I don't know. I call it the Harry Potter phenomenon. You know, that one book will spark some kid's imagination or parents' imagination or anyone, not just the kids. You know, just some comic book that unlocks the door once again that gets people wanting to see what that is. And then it starts a whole new thing. That's it. I mean, it's like the hula hoop and the Hudsucker proxy, you know, once that one kid finds that hula hoop, you know, and it'll spread like wildfire.
Absolutely right. Like I, you know, people always ask how, you know, Comicsgate, indie comic scene, you know, what's going to, and he just says good writing. He goes, we got to, you know, we got to get a good story because we got great artists.
Yeah.
You know, we got the best artists, if you ask me, but we need, you know, like I Wraith of God is like leaps and bounds. You know, your Allegiance artwork. I thought Nora Saga. I pray that there's gonna be more Nora Sagas. That is phenomenal.
I hope so. I think they're concentrating on just finishing up the commitments that they had. You know, they're gonna get. I think they're starting to send out Bass Reeves, and then they got the rest of the books. And then I don't know where they're gonna go from there. But I certainly had big plans for the next arc, and I hope they still thinking about that.
To me, when you said Harry Potter, that's the first thing that popped into my head is Nora Saga could be the next. You know, you collect that big old story, put that out, and
oh man,
phenomenal. I love that. That was
it was doing its thing. It had legs. And I seeing the sales numbers. I don't remember what they are offhand, but it was like more comics than I'd ever sold in my life going through Walmart. And then people were telling me their kids love it. I gave this to my kids, and blah blah blah. I read it, and it was great. And I was prepared to do it for 10 years. You know, I was prepared to ride it.
That was good.
You know, I'm not opposed to that, but the whole idea of the dream was the direct market or rather newsstand. That was the dream, to like get back on newsstand in a big way. And you know, the business side behind it, the people that control it, you know, it ain't like it used to be. I'll say that. So they pretty much put the nail in that coffin.
J-Bot has a good comment over here. He had another comment too I want to get back to about Jack Kirby. But I totally agree. People that don't have a comic book store, like I was a customer and I worked in a store. I worked in a couple of different comic book stores, and I loved every minute of it. You know, every time people came into the I was always aware of the comic book stereotype of like that. Well, actually, you don't know what you. So I always tried to be as friendly and as nice and welcoming as possible to anybody had like the slightest question. I would almost maybe too much, you know. Oh no, Wolverine stole it. And you could just see them backing up.
Welcome to comics.
About that, we were friendly, you know. So yes, it's a shame that people who don't go to comic book stores, but
I remember all of mine so fondly for various reasons. Some of them were really, you know, they make you feel like you're stealing if you were like opening up the plastic bag. I hated those, but it was still a great store. But one that I went to, one of the first ones that I found that I kind of claimed as my store was Kaboom Comics and Stuff in Carrollton, Texas. And it was ran by Bob Ludke. And he had Sega Genesis and Nintendo up front by the door, where with a couple chairs you could just come in and play games if you want. Yeah, it was selling T-shirts and stuff back when, like, you know, it was still kind of rare to have comic book T-shirts. He had guys in there that were drawing their comics at the front table, you know, like this, who I went on to become friends with, you know, years and years later. They went on to try to do their own comics. And cool. I would enter his art contests and things like that. So it was like a hub for comic book fandom. I mean, that's when it was at its best, you know.
Yeah, I've been in comic book stores just like you're saying. It was like a club that everybody was welcome to join, and we talked comics. It was exciting. Like there would be 3 people discussing the Watchmen. I remember when the Watchmen came out, there was a lot of people standing around talking about the plan, and I remember like listening in and joining. Oh yeah, you know what I mean? It was just cool. And then I've been in a couple of comic book stores where like you obviously don't know Milton Caniff and Bob. I'm like, I'm 14. You know, give me a break.
Yeah. But I was always hungry. I'm like, well, yeah, tell me about him then. You know,
yeah.
Like, I get
who was
into
the
it.
first one that I didn't know? I remember I was in one comp. I used to drive around and hit the comic book stores. I used to call it going to the A to Z, and I go to the back issues and start with A and pull out. And I was not really paying attention because I was listening, and I heard the owner yelling at some kids that came in, and I look up, it was my nephew. So I said, hey, you got a problem with my nephew? And the guy was like, oh, because he would see I was the guy that came in, bought up $100 worth of comics. And I was like, is my nephew? And he was like, he just preemptively yelled because like 12-year-olds came in the store.
Yeah,
like, that's my
don't
nephew.
touch anything.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Uncle John. And I was like, that's Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, would it make a difference if it was my nephew or not? Like the kid just walked into the store, he started yelling at him.
Yeah, some of them are like that. Yeah, I mean there's a on the either side of these wonderful stores we're talking about, or that one where the guy running is super strict, real clean store. Everything is in bags. He won't let you touch a thing.
Yeah,
you just feel so uncomfortable in there. And then the flip side of that are these little stores that comics are just pouring off the shelves onto the floor. You're stepping over stuff. Again, it's hot, you know, and you're just like, I can't even be comfortable.
The guy's eating over a copy of X-Men or something like that.
Yeah. You can tell he like inherited it from his uncle, and it's just a place, it's constantly losing his money. He doesn't care. Or they've just gotten complacent or whatever. Sometimes those stores are great because you find great deals in those kinds of stores, but they're not comfortable.
What I hated is when you found a comic, you're like, oh my God, I miss it. And none of the comics have any prices, and you bring it up, and then they just look through the Overstreet guide.
Oh yeah,
20 minutes looking at you're like $30. Forget it. You just waste. Just put a price on the bag. Whatever.
I accumulated most of my collection from the quarter bin and the dollar bin. Yep. It was quarter bin and 75-cent bin, and then also from this great store in Texas called the Half Price Bookstore, where they had. For years and years, they had stacks and stacks of comics, and they were cover price. So it was insane. You'd find, the cover wouldn't be great, but you'd find old Jack Kirby stuff or old anything, and the cover would be all ripped up, but you'd still get it for like 10 cents or something because it was like half of cover. So, but then they discovered, somebody obviously told them, because then suddenly, suddenly they had all the high-end comics all out and in a shelf over to the side behind lock and key, and everything was like half of Overstreet guide price, not cover,
There was a couple of stores that Magic the Gathering became big, and they were shifting from comic books to Magic the Gathering. So they were just like, get rid of all these comic books. And, you better believe I went there, and they had them on the floor, boxes long. I was like this guy coming from work. I'm a construction worker, so I'm dirty, just, bending over. I'm sure my ass crack is sticking out. I got almost every issue of the original Thunder Agents for $1 each in like near mint condition. I was just like, do you guys know what you're selling over? Like they had no clue. They were transitioning to Magic. Get rid of this stuff. It was awesome.
This is a great question.
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this. Go ahead.
Well, one of the first books I picked up was kind of an entry-level Kirby for me. If it's too crazy, too quick, if you're New Gods, it's like, I don't recognize anything in this comic book. This is really hard for me to get into. The Challenges of the Unknown is a great entry-level kind of Kirby book because it has really fantastical ideas, but it's still kind of grounded in some kind of 50s kitsch reality,
I'll say, like, obviously, Fantastic Four is my favorite of all time. So, like, any early omnibus, like Jack Kirby and Stan did the first 102 issues. So if you could get like whatever collections of Fantastic Four from the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, awesome stuff. I
got a couple. I love the essential books because you get them in black and white. I've been trying to pick up all of those that I missed. They're getting expensive.
And I'll always push the Thor, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee Thors from like 150 to 175 are like you're gonna get all the high evolutionary Adam Warlock. He fights Galactus, Magog, all of that. So there you go, J-Bot. I didn't skip your question. I just waiting for it to come up naturally in the conversation.
Speaking of Thor, this is here's another Thor that I read in the artist edition form because it's the Walt Simonson Thor, which is so killer.
Simonson on this channel so bad.
He would be great. He's a good talker. But man, he kept all his art, so they were able to do the entire series as an artist edition, and you can read it. All the lettering is on there. Yeah, I'm like, we need to get back to that.
That is perhaps the number one run of mainstream comic books of all time. That what you're holding in your hand.
It's amazing.
Oh my God.
It crosses like into that literary category before people really thought of comics as literary,
Yeah, man. I remember when that Thor came out, that Beta Ray Bill on the cover, and me being, I don't care what anybody says. Every comic book collector, a serious comic book collector, and I'm not pulling rank on anybody. You guys know what I'm talking about. I think we have a little bit of obsessiveness about us. We don't like change. We like our numbers and then all of a sudden they got a new monster guy holding Thor's hammer, and I was outraged. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying it. And I refused them. I bought all my comics except for that one. And then a week later, I'm like, all right, give me one of these. And it was, you know what I mean? I was
that way
collection for the first time ever. Because
I was that way for artists. Like, if Jim Lee's drawn a book and then suddenly it's someone else, I'm like, man, and that I just skip it that month, so I remember a lot of story.
Avengers had George Perez and Joe Simon artwork and Pablo Marco, and then Avengers 102. It was an inventory issue with Carmine Infantino, and I was like,
oh yeah, he's great. I love Carmine.
It was so different. What I mean? It was like taking a shower and all of a sudden they turn the water off and it's cold. You're like, what?
Who were they coming from to Karma? Who was it? Who did it start with?
The issue before that was George Perez with Pablo, Mark, and then the next issue was Carmine Infantino. That's
like hot and cold water. I mean, that is totally a different flavor.
I didn't know who Carmine Infantino, because I was also a Marvel zombie until the 80s. You know what I mean? So I didn't know this legend.
He can draw the ladies. He's another guy. I've been discovering a lot of the older stuff. Like, I've been going backwards lately. Same thing. It's like video games or like movies. I'm like, they could just stop making new stuff, and I will never run out of stuff to read because there's endless comics that I've not. Look at that. That's a stack
right next to me that I'm. Fabian Nicietza said I had mental issues when I showed him that stuff. I'm like, how many other customers would you like to insult there, Fabian?
I just bought. My uncle was kind of inherited 14 long boxes of comics, and they'd already been picked through for the large parts, but he needed to get rid of them, and I got them for like $1,000. So I got like 14 new long boxes of comics, and I was going through them, and it's a lot of like stuff that I probably would never look at, but I'm going to anyway, just because
you got it now.
God, you never know. Also, what kind of like there was one called like, what was it? It was like Fat Ninja. You ever hear of that?
No,
I don't know. I've never heard of it, but I love it now. I'm like, Fat Ninja.
Fat Ninja.
So you never know. You never know what's going to pop out there.
And friends of mine, at work, you got to be cool with construction workers. You know what I mean? You talk sports and stuff like that. But I don't know anything about sports. And eventually, sooner or later, I join the conversation. And I'll say something about comic books. And then they'll guess, oh, you like comics? I got a box of comics in my garage. I don't know what to do. I'm tripping over them. And they'll come to work and give me boxes of comics. So
nice.
A lot of stuff that like I never would have collected. A lot of the guys were. I wasn't a big fan of the early Image stuff. Like a few series.
Oh, man.
Now I have almost everything.
I was a mark for that. Oh yeah. I was a mark for that big time. I was the right age, the right demographic, right at the right time, and I picked up all of it, even Shaman's Tears. I didn't care. I got it all.
I just got comics tears now. I bought Pete Sametti's copy off of eBay because Mike Grell on it. So I gotta get. I love Mike Grell. Another guy
he's great
on my channel.
I mean, I picked up so much and was exposed to. I mean, it had that not happened, I don't know if I would have been aware of like, Trencher, for instance, Keith Giffen, who ended up being one of my absolute faves. And I mean, he did so much great stuff, and just his work on like Lobo alone is hilarious and great. And he was one of the Image guys, Larry Stroman.
What a talent.
Just amazing. I think I was already a fan of his from X Factor because I was already kind of into that. But, I followed him, of course, over to Image. Dale Keown, of course. I was a Pitt fan long before I was a Hulk fan.
I just read 1 to 10 today.
That's great.
I've had these Pitt comics for like 20 years, and I'm like, I'm going to read them finally. Number 10, I was missing.
Man. We need more of that.
So I can't read 12 to 20 yet because I'm missing 11.
Oh no. Yeah. We need that omnibus.
Where do you live? Where do you live? Where are these comics? If you're closer to Louisiana, Louisiana, Kelsey will take them. If you're closer to New York, I'll take them.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take them off your hand. I'm like, I'm all about like hanging on to physical media these days. So.
Oh yeah. I want to address what you said. Like things could I know I sound like a grouchy old man and I look like a grouchy old man, but I'm actually quite pleasant. But like Star Wars, I'm done.
Yeah.
They're all talking about this lunatic lady that's going to make the next Star. I don't care.
Oh, I don't care.
I don't care. Doctor Who. I'm sorry. I for 40 years I like Doctor Who. I make an X something and I don't look back. I
mean, I only watch the Tom Baker Doctor Who anyway. Every other one's not real to me. So I watched that when I was a kid, and that was all it was for me. But like the Star Wars, I mean, when they put those out, the reissue, with the new effects and all that, they put that on DVD. As I'm sure as a joke. They on the second disc they have the original cut, and it's like letterboxed on all sides because he like a jerk, he's like, okay, you want it like it used to, like it really is, here it is, a little tiny file. I don't care, it's exactly like I know. That's the only one I watch. It's the only one so I got him. I don't need another version.
We were talking about like artists going back and reworking on their stuff, and I do think it's a disservice. Like, I'm sorry, George Lucas. I know you own Star Wars and it's your baby, but like 20 years later, it's part of American culture. And to go back and change that, warts and all, that's part of American culture. Like, and the fact that they made Guido shoot first destroyed Han Solo. Solo, I remember as a kid, I was scared of Han Solo. I mean, I know all the girls loved him, but that didn't work on me as a
this guy was
he was a scary guy that they met. Like think about that. Luke's right off the farm. He walks into a bar where you can murder people and just toss the guy a penny and they mop up the murdered guy, and then they look around, the devil's sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
And then Chewbacca is terrifying in that first shot. And
you're going to hitch a ride with this guy into space? Yeah. Give me a break.
And this guy, he just shot Guido. He owes the mob money.
Right.
This is a dangerous person. And he was selling spice. I didn't realize, but he was a drug dealer.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
This is a murdering drug dealer who's desperate. He was terrifying. And then he's rescuing the princess by the end. It was a great character arc. To have him, get shot at and defending himself, you totally emasculated and destroyed that character.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I watch those new movies as like expensive Italian knockoffs. Like I don't. They don't really like. Honestly, even the prequels. I'm like, they don't really like. I had one kind of Star Wars. That was it. So I'm kind of done. So like whatever they do from now on is fan fiction.
Yeah,
so.
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Like I say, like I broke up with that girl. I wish her well. But it's none of my business who she marries, who she dates, who she's kissing. You know what I mean? And Star Wars, I broke up with you, Star Wars. I don't care who you're kissing, who you're directed by, or whatever. Because that's
I want. Uh-oh.
What?
My computer just freaked out. Yeah, I want new stuff. Like I want I'm after the new Star Wars, whatever that may be, the thing that we have not seen yet. You know?
Yeah, I have a feeling that things are turning, and maybe the next couple of years it's going to be good. But I don't know. Do I want to go back to Marvel? Do I want to like I stopped in 2015? And I need full runs. Like, am I going to go and buy 8 years worth of bad comics? I don't know.
My humble opinion, I think that or that's all kind of done at this point. Like I think that they're probably gonna, it may, it'll be like the Warner Brothers store, where you can buy a plate with Daffy Duck on it. It'll be like that for Superman and Batman and all that for a long time. They'll put out like a Christmas Superman issue drawn by Jim Lee or something. It'll probably be like that for years. Comics will live on from us, from indies.
Yeah.
From doing things, until the next wave hits, where these corporations realize they can make money again. I can't believe they haven't shut it down already. It's like, I don't know. It's just crazy how they're just grinding it away until we're like, are you just trying to make us never, ever want to see these characters ever again?
I know.
Because you're not really doing anything interesting with it, And we might need just time to really kind of reassess. I mean, the last kind of great push was when all those British guys came in and started like doing really dangerous things with all these characters. I didn't like any of that when it first started happening, but it at least was trying to push the benchmark forward, in a new way.
I think it's funny that the only real successful rock star in comic books right now is Mark Miller, and the mainstream guys, like, they treat him like he's Baltimore. They don't want to say his name. It's like he's the only guy selling comics right now. He's the in the mainstream.
They've been jealous of his success for a while, though. Long before all this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, long before that, when he was, when he started doing his own books, I could feel the jealousy like rising. Already people were just like, oh man, I don't like that Mark Millar guy. I thought it was Mike S. Miller at first, because when I started hearing Mark Millar's name, I was like, hey, nice to see that Mike Miller's still doing comics, and I thought it was the same guy.
It's funny. I thought the other way. I thought when EVS was talking about Mike S. Miller, I'm like, why does he hate Mark Millar so much? What is going on? This is not good. These are like the Titans are clashing over here. I don't like when mommy and daddy fight.
Not Mike S. Miller, Mark Millar. Okay, now that we know they're two separate people.
Do you think this, like the rumors of Marvel and DC just licensing out their characters? Do you think that's valid, and do you think it's good or bad?
Oh yeah, I watched this whole thing a long time ago, and I forget his name. He's like a fantasy writer. He has like long hair. He was like a YouTube guy. He's probably still out there doing it, but. Real intelligent guy, and he started talking about the stages of IP ownership or custodianship, and there's like a period of growth when you're starting out, you're developing interest, you're refining the character. That's like the first stage. Second stage is it's in its popularity, and you grow you try everything you can, you sell every bit you can possibly do, every pair of underoos, every keychain,
boxes,
everything, and then it goes into decline, at which point the corporation relegates it to kind of a stasis mode, where it's like they're just maintaining the IP at this point. And I think that's what they're doing now. They're just maintaining ownership of the IP by putting out new things here and there. So it's just, there's no control whatsoever of what they're putting out. They're just putting out whatever, still milking the retailers for every dime they can get. But, we're in this stage where, I think it's going into hibernation. So, but this is, it's sad for people that are just really into Batman and Superman. That's never been my meat and potatoes in comics. Like I kind of went into manga and heavy metal magazine and European stuff And there's a lot of independence, you know. I mean, most of my career was spent drawing for indie books and things like that. So I was always into that. So rarely have I dipped into the mainstream. So I was never, it's not quite a deep a cut for a guy like me. But I do understand that kind of like, you know, guys like David Williams, probably much like yourself, grew up with these icons, you know, every month after month, you know, year after year. And I can imagine it's like watching a friend die, you know?
Yeah. I was buying $400 a month worth of comic books at one point, you know, right?
Oh,
you know, and I was just like, I don't even like these anymore. And they're backing up. I can't get into, you know, and I stopped. And I filled out what I pre-ordered and stuff like that. I didn't want to screw anybody over.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember like looking around, like, now what do I do? Do I finish reading? You know, like I was contemplating selling my collection, you know, and then what? You know, I remember my wife and I, we were going to move out of our apartment. Like I think it was around 2014. And I was like, I gotta sell my collection to get money for a down payment for a house. And, you know, and that was stressful. I'm like, then what do I do? Like, I'm the comic book guy. You know what I mean? Like, do I start?
Yeah, do you start over? Do you go into?
Like, yeah, I knew me. I would just be like, anybody talks about Spider-Man, I'm like, I don't care. You know, I would almost be like bitter about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be like, they dumped me. She dumped me. I don't talk about her anymore. You know, so.
I went through that phase long before any of this really started happening. I just kind of hit this point where I don't know, I don't even remember why, but I was done with comics. Like, oh man, this was like 15 years ago at this point, but I gave all my comics away to actually another guy who works under a pseudonym. So I'm not going to say who he is, but he kept my comics for years and he kept asking me, do I want them back? I'm like, no, man, they're yours. They're yours.
That's a good guy.
Yeah. But years later, now I started, you know, rebuilding that collection, you know, rebuilding the, you know, the thing even stronger. And this time I'm like, no, this is more of an archival kind of situation at this point. I got to make sure that some of this stuff, you know, at least I have a copy of it, you know.
Fritzy has a good question. He says, am I a collector or a reader? I'm both. I have to read every comic book that I buy. Matter of fact, I kind of keep a mental tally. There's only 5 comics in my entire collection that I quit in the middle of, and you know, they have the distinction of being comics that I couldn't finish. They were that bad.
Oh wow.
You know, but I have to read every comic. Like this I just read today. It was awful, but I had to read it.
What is that? Which one is that?
The Scarlet Witch. I was a big fan because it was written by James Robinson, who did Starman, which
James Robinson. I like James Robinson.
And this art is just there's a reason why the next issue is the last issue. And I can't buy collections. Like
the last James Robinson comic I read was Leave It to Chance. Did you remember that?
That
was great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that was so good. I before I met my wife, I was dating a woman who had 3 daughters. You know, and she was cool, and she was like, I don't know why she dated me. She hated everything that I was into, comics stuff. So
opposites attract, right?
Yeah, I bought a collection of Leave It to Chance, and I gave it to her daughters. And she's like, "Why are you giving my daughters comics?" I'm like, "Because it's a girl hero, and you know, it's fun, and this is
good stuff."
Paul Smith artwork is amazing, you know. And she was like so contemptuous about it. I'm sure that those girls just put it aside, never read it. You know, I was like, "Oh well, I tried."
I see Dale A's guys say, what happened to James Robinson? His work on Detective a few years ago was not as good. I think it's a similar case of like, you know, look at all the hubbub about John Cassidy's latest cover. I mean, I just don't think the money's not in it. Nobody gives a crap. There's no good editorial oversight. They're not really bouncing ideas off each other. So they're just like making a paycheck. I guarantee if James Robinson went and did his own comic, it would probably be fire, man. It would be great.
Well, Starman was a very personal, almost like, you know, like that character was based on him, the young hipster who's all into collectibles, stuff like that. And it was phenomenal to the point where I didn't realize that I had missed a Starman 1 million. You know, they did that 5th week.
Oh, event. Yeah.
And and I pulled that out. Like I was like, I felt like a gem in the rough, like, a Starman comic written by James Robinson that I never read, and I finished that series like 15 years ago, and it was awesome. So
wow, okay.
So let me pull out this, and this is garbage, and this Airboy was like an insult. So he
did Airboy? Oh my God! Don't tell Chuck.
But it wasn't. Yeah, well, Chuck talked about it. It wasn't about Airboy. It was about him writing Airboy.
Oh no!
And he took all these drugs, and the real fictional Airboy admonished him for like doing. I was like, it was like a Hunter S. Thompson writing Airboy.
Oh no! Leave Hunter S. Thompson to Hunter S. Thompson. Yeah, nobody could do Hunter S. Thompson with him. But geez, yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Nah, that's no good, man. I'm not a big fan of postmodernism where they deconstruct. Here, let's show Superman
as a jerk.
As a jerk. I'm like, they already did that in Superman 2. Right. It was great for like the 15 minutes. It was scary as hell, and like I liked it. But Superman 3, I mean, wasn't it?
Yeah, with the Richard Pryor, with the bad kryptonite. He got a bad dose of kryptonite.
Yeah. I mean, it still scars me. I still think about him with his gray skin almost sitting in that bar, fucking peanuts.
Messing with that guy's business,
Yeah, and then he melts the mirror. I kept thinking
like that. It bothers me.
It did too. I kept thinking about the poor guy who ran that place. He just melted that guy's mirror. I was like a kid when I saw that, and it still affected me in that way.
Superman wouldn't do that. They should have showed a scene of like Clark Kent paying for the, or Superman showing up.
Yeah, when he comes back. Yeah, that would have been great.
Like I said this before, and I like comic books before Watchmen and comic books after Watchmen. Are to me, Watchmen is a line in the sand.
Not Dark Knight.
Well, Dark Knight and Watchmen, like what were they, like a year apart? From each other?
Yeah. It was like a 1-2 punch.
But the difference is, and I know people get mad when I say, but I didn't like Dark Knight even when it came out.
That's funny.
But I loved Watchmen. But I don't want my superheroes deconstructed anymore. I want Superman to be pure and noble.
I'll tell you something. I didn't like either. I wasn't like. I was a Year One fan. I loved Year One.
That is my favorite Batman story of all time.
It is one of the greatest.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. I read it every year. Actually,
it's perfect.
And I still. I mean, Dark Knight Returns is great, but it's really interesting. It's got a lot of cool elements to it. I don't know. It's great. Same thing about Watchmen. I love all the deep character connections. That's really what got me, is that it felt like I've been reading this comic since I was a kid, and there was all this lore, and you're getting into it. I just didn't. The giant squid got me at the end,
people also get mad when I say I like the movie ending better.
I do too. Okay, yeah, I do too.
I like the movie better.
It's a little more on the nose, but maybe that's what it needed, because I understand now what he was trying to do. It's just he was trying to go into that that thing you can't explain, that Lovecraft kind of element. Here's this just crazy. It's just
fear will unite us all. Yeah,
it's kind of like that movie Magnolia, which is really strange for me to bring up, but there's a point where everybody's bullshit is just piling on top of each other, and it has to rain frogs in order for everybody to snap out of their bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, it took an act of God.
That movie, and I'm like, what? Am I high? Like,
it took me a minute to kind of understand what that was. I'm like, this is stupid. And then I was like, oh, okay. Because they changed from that point on. So it was like, it took an act of God to get them to kind of snap out of their selfishness. So I kind of look at the end of Watchmen in the comic book similar. It's just this, it doesn't have to be so on the nose as a nuclear bomb. I mean, we all know that. That's what the whole point is. You knew it was a nuclear bomb they were all talking about. But, to do something like that, I don't know. It's kind of ballsy. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I like it more than I thought I did.
It was like what you said. I read The Watchmen, and I'm like, by the end of the first issue, you're like, this is a whole universe. This guy created, he had a world built, everything was connected, I thought it was, such a great thing. Yeah, I saw this. The ending of Watchmen was lifted from an Outer Limits episode.
Wow. Yeah.
And I love this comment. Year One's possibly the greatest comic. Yeah. Yeah.
I have this. I don't know where it is offhand. Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, keep it close. I have this book that I picked up when I was a kid from Walden. Yeah, it was a Walden Books release. So it's Dark Knight, it's year one, and this like Christmas story.
Yep.
And I've read the whole thing maybe 2 or 3 times, but year one maybe 15, 20 times. I read it, like I say, every year just because it's so.
It is. It's just a masterpiece.
Fucking good. I don't know how to describe it, but like it's so rich. Like I was saying about Watchmen with the character interactions, they go through. Like you can read Bruce Wayne's journal entries. You can read, which are like little torn sheets of paper, and he gets into the psychology of what he's doing. And then you could read Gordon's, which is like torn pieces of yellow
legal paper.
Yeah. Legal paper. Yeah, exactly. And it's just. It's so thorough in its design and it's like acting. I liken it to like it's the French Connection of comics. You know,
okay.
It's like this. It's as real as you could possibly make Batman, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like in a very good and constructive way. Like it was like watching a film. You know, almost. Like
in year one when Batman's trapped in the building.
Yeah.
You know,
oh God. Yeah.
Not to take away from anybody else, but if that was Chuck Dixon, I wouldn't have been scared.
Yeah. I was never scared reading a Chuck Dixon comic. I was excited reading Chuck Dixon comics.
Batman's gonna kick his ass out of the way. But in that, I was just like, how the hell is this guy gonna get out of here? You know,
Chuck. Chuck is one of the most cinematic writers in the business, and I love because I come from. I was a film fanatic, I think, before I really got interested in comics, and I even got into comics as an avenue to tell stories like a filmmaker. So Chuck, I gravitated to Chuck like right away because when you read his stuff, it's like reading an action movie. It's so good. It's so fluid in the action and the movement, especially if he's working with a guy like Rodolfo DiMaggio, who just gets all that so well. But then Miller, it's more about like the psychology of going through the event, so it's like it's like going through that action moment in Chuck Dixon, but then what a struggle that was, through the eyes of Miller.
I remember saying to Chuck Dixon, I said, I think one of the reasons why, he was blacklisted or whatever 23 scooted out. I said, because you're a blue collar guy from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And these New York elites that make comic books, they don't like us blue collar guys. They pretend they do,
Yeah.
And Chuck Dixon's this, what was he like 6'6"? He's just this big hulking guy. Like every other guy on my job site looks like Chuck Dixon.
Chuck's Airboy was outstanding. I'm reading that right now, actually. Yeah. The first comics run. Is that what that was? I hope that's the one I'm reading.
No, Eclipse Comics.
Eclipse.
Yeah. I remember I bought it was 50 cents for number one, so I just bought
reading them online. Oh yeah.
So I can't believe it. Like I told Chuck, I said I got your comics with your first comic, Airboy. You know what I mean? So like,
was that his first?
That was he had a published comic that he actually drew before that, but I don't think it was released. I think Airboy was the first comic that was. He actually wanted to be an artist, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first thing
No, Chuck Dixon's not really 6'6". I'm exaggerating. But look at the picture of him standing next to Eric July. He looks like
he's pretty big.
Eric July and cradle him. He's a big guy. I wouldn't fight him. Him and Grant Nolan are the not the only, but those are two guys I know I wouldn't fight.
I think the first one that he read that I read of his might have been the Warzone, the Punisher Warzone, real late in the game, but with John Romita Jr. on art. It was just pitch perfect. Another one that was that first issue. It was so good. It's another one I'll read occasionally.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, it would. Can you imagine? Got to get those guys next to each other.
Yeah.
I'm set it's next to me probably too. I'm 6. What am I? 6'2"?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm kind of tall, but yeah. Hot.
In the Dark Knight Returns, when I said I didn't like, I still don't like the portrayal of Superman. Like, I love Superman is still my favorite superhero. Like, to me, Superman is everything about comic books. Like, if you like comic books in some sort of respect, you have to like Superman, because he's like the first superhero. He's the greatest superhero. He's the superhero with like the biggest prestige. And then for him to be like the stooge of the government, I was like,
yeah, I mean, what's really funny is that coming from Miller, who has he's probably more libertarian than anything. So I guess he would be critical of Reagan's America, I suppose. I don't know. He seems like, I don't know. It is a kind of a strange thing to make him. Yeah. It's almost like a cynical outlook on it.
Because I don't know. I just didn't like, and I don't like I read The Boys. I'm a big Garth Ennis fan. So I read The Boys, but like I'm such a stubborn jerk. I'm like, I'm gonna read The Boys, but I'm not gonna like it. So I bought every issue and I had to read it because I read every comic.
It was good though, wasn't it?
I don't know. At this point, it was like a little. I mean, I understood what he was going for. He was a great writer. The characters were all great. The stories, but it just like made me feel.
I never read that. Yeah, I read his Punisher. 2 different Punishers. One of them was a Barracuda.
Oh,
this
yeah,
big black guy.
I read
who is hilarious, and it just like you said. Oh, it's so good, but it just like you said, it makes you feel like dirty, after you read it. It's just like, oh man, I've been hanging out in the slums.
There's that Punisher Max series that came out. There's one.
I got a Fury one that he did. I haven't read that one.
Yeah, the Fury one. The first page is all the hookers that passed out because Fury is an unstoppable sex machine. But there's one Punisher story where Punisher, it's like he's assaulting a building, and it's just like they're making like snuff films in this building. And the Punisher is going in, and it's just like the worst of underground porn. And I'm like, oh my god! Like by the time I was done with it, I was like, oh, it was a great story. And I gave it to my friend Mike to read, and like a couple weeks later, he shows up with the comic, and he puts it. He goes, "Never make me read anything like this again. It was excellent."
That was real tough for me because I was a big Punisher fan again from like Chuck Dixon and even further back from when Jim Lee was drawing it, and like even Mike Barron's run with like Carl Jansen. So I mean that was Punisher to me. So it took me a long time to kind of get into what Garth Ennis, because that was like that was not comic books, that was like reality was seeping into my comic book,
I just read this the other day for the first time.
Oh, see, I bet that's fun, right? That's the one where he dies and like comes back or something.
He's a stooge of the angels. Everybody hated it, so I was prepared to hate it, and I was like, I'm not reading it. I'm general principle.
Yeah,
it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I never read that one. I have to go back and look.
It shows you that Marvel never knew what to do with the Punisher. Like the only time the Punisher was good was when Chuck was writing him, when Mike was writing him, and Garth was writing him.
Yeah, street level guys.
Yeah.
Well, Fritzy Snitchell, to answer your question, there's news for Shank coming up. I was just talking to someone about that earlier. Lots of new reveals coming, and I'm going to try to do an ash can, actually. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Old school ash can, real limited. But Nexus news, we got 3 books coming out. We're kind of teasing them out right now. There's it's going to start with Nexus Scourge, and then I don't know if anybody said this now, but then we're doing another Nexus book after that. I don't know if I should say anything. I'm not going to say anything yet.
We're getting scoops here.
That's second. Yeah, that's the second book.
Nexus dies.
No. I mean, it's I don't know. I need to make sure what I could talk about, but then the third one is the completion of the Nexus Triplets book that we started with your boy Zach. He is a big Nexus fan and was really wanting to do Nexus books, and he kind of got Baron started in the self-publishing thing. I guess I think so.
That was such a big deal when I saw
it. Was great.
Your boy Zach had Mike Barron, he had Chuck Dixon working. I was like, oh my god. To be honest, that kind of inspired me to get get my ass in gear and start making my own comic. You know what I mean?
Oh man, it's great times. I mean, he asked me to draw Nexus. That was like a no-brainer, you know.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on in this world that like some guy on YouTube could have Chuck Dixon writing comics for? Like that's when it really crystallized how crazy the comic book world was, you know.
Yep. I mean, this is the Wild West, and this is what's exciting is that you can kind of make up your own path, you know, as long as you can drum up the audience to be interested in what you got, you know. Definitely exciting times.
Yeah, I forgot about Carl Potts. I don't mean any just.
Yeah, Carl Potts.
Yeah,
who I kind of attribute as kind of given Jim Lee his real first shot, right? Like it was like inking Jim Lee back in the day. Jim was one of my guys. Oh yeah, so then the triplets were finishing that off. That's going to be the whole story in one thing. And that's coming up later in the year. So, and then Scribbles is fulfilling now, coloring Kit Carter for Aaron Lopresti, finishing up my little part of the new Accent Level Up book. So there's going to be a lot of me out there this year. It's pretty exciting.
You know what one of my favorite things that you ever done was you did why can't I think of the name of the company? But you did the Crusaders.
Archie, yeah. Dark Circle, right?
I've always had a soft spot for those characters.
Oh, me too. That's another one I could have done for like 10 years, easy. But that was right at 2015, 2017, where things were starting to get crazy. And I'm doing 2 books. One's a classic superhero book. The other is kind of this crazy forward-thinking vampire book from Image. So I'm hitting 2 different markets at the same time, and people are still complaining. You aren't making books for me. You aren't making books for me. Like, what is happening? So that was part of what got my attention. You know, I'm like,
when I read that Dark Circle Archie Crusaders, I was just like looking at the art, and I'm like, this is like such good comic book art. And right then and there, I said, if I ever make a comic book, the only person who could draw it was Kelsey Shannon.
I appreciate that.
You know,
thank you.
You know, now I have Renzo Rodriguez, and I'm as happy as.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is like I love. I'm very forward thinking.
Something. Look at.
Please
this. Look at that.
Hey,
that is just awesome. That is just awesome. When he sent me that, I was like, I made the right choice.
Yeah, that's great. Classic. See, that's the thing I was just saying. It's like I'm a very forward-thinking kind of guy. I'm always kind of thinking of like a new style, drawing inspiration from new territories. But it's definitely on my mind that, especially now, that we have to keep at least a little foot in the kind of traditions of American comic books, or we're going to lose them forever. So I'm trying to learn how to color it by hand the way they used to, how to even letter by hand. I want it to be,
oh wow,
like an old school, piece of art, like comics used to be, where if I ever sell the pages, they'll be complete, like the way you do with the old ones.
It's funny that you said that, because my comic is going to be called Heroic Tales, and it's it's a love letter to old Marvel. It's going to be 22 pages, and then if I hit a stretch goal, I'm going to have a backup. Marcus in the chat is drawing a couple of pages for a backup story about the villain. Nice. But I'm putting ads in it. I want to do a letters page, and I want it to look like an old comic as much as possible. Because I understand that I'm 55 years old and I'm talking about comic books from the 80s, and a lot of people haven't seen them. They just like me not knowing about Milton Caniff when I was 14. So right. This is why comic books were so much fun.
Well, this is our role now, right? There's this new generation coming in that, got to kind of impart that old school knowledge too. You got to have these people here. You got to be here with your giant room of long boxes.
Which picture are you talking about, Wizard Sleeves? My picture of my comic? I don't want to steal Kelsey's time. But I'm getting,
or the long box photo, or both.
Oh, you want to
start one then the other. Let's see those long boxes.
There you go. Yeah. This is the picture that made my collection. I mean, made my channel.
Goodness.
You know, I was a guy making stupid videos on the internet that nobody was watching, and then I put this on Twitter, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, let's subscribe to this guy." I think this picture got me like half my subscribers.
That's a guy who knows what he's talking about.
And then this is the first appearance of the patriarch. Basically my homage to classic superheroes. He's
patriarch.
He's Reed Richards. He's Superman. He's everybody. Yeah. That's his name. He's the patriarch.
Yeah, that's not going to ruffle any feathers. No,
guess what? One of his powers is he has the male gaze. He closed his eyes and he could concentrate and he could see. So like it's like he doesn't have X-ray vision or anything like that, but like he'll concentrate.
Total mental clarity. It's the male gaze.
So he's always checking up. He's got a wife. He's got 7 kids. You know, so he wants to make sure nothing's bad's over there. He's checking on this person who's got mental problems. That's always throwing herself out of buildings and stalking them. You know, and then like you know, is this villain still in jail? You know, is this volcano? You know what I mean? So I joked around that I made up a character called the Patriarch, and he's a father, and he's got the male gaze. But I love the character. He's a good character, if you ask me. You know,
I think so. Yeah. That ought to be fun. Good classic superheroine.
Yes, good classic. And Renzo, like I'm like, you know, I want the colors to be like 4-color, you know, nice classic superhero colors, simple and elegant costume. You know, and like I tell people, I'm so mad what they do it to like Reed Richards and like even Superman now is like being punked by his wife, you know, and being lectured.
Oh yeah,
you're lecturing Superman, like you know what I mean? And like Reed Richards is like, you know, being a jerk.
Yeah. No, it's time to carry on the legacy yourself. You know, the things that you enjoyed. I mean, what I do is not quite as clear cut, but like it is all of these things that I cared about from so many different things, all kind of put together into you know what I do. So like, yeah, I mean I think that's what's so great about comics, and I think they'll live forever.
You should have the power to man.
Hey, yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
made me laugh.
he's got the mansplaining ability. He can mansplain.
I don't want to give more away because this, you know, I want it. Every issue is going to be a self-contained issue, you know, because it's crowdfunding. I don't know if I'll make enough money to make the second issue. When issue number 1's coming out, no doubt about that, you know. Yeah. But issue number 2 is whether, you know, it's up to you guys. But you know,
his man spread could be like Hulk's clap, right? Like, you know.
You know, I don't want to give away like what his
no.
You know, and it's funny because just the other day I realized something about the main villain in issue number 1. I'm like, oh my god, this is good. I'm going to see if anybody else notices but me. It'll be kind of when somebody realizes, oh, you know, no,
that's always fun.
Or it was subconscious. It was subconscious genius. There you go.
Yeah, I think that's fun. It's always fun to have like little Easter eggs in there, you know, to find.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. So I always get a little embarrassed talking about me, you know. A little.
No, it's exciting. I mean, in fact, that it's really great that you know in this environment you could take your passion and put that into creating something. I mean, that's what's so great about this environment is that you know a lot depends on if you can connect with an audience, but maybe you do. Maybe you got that thing that people have been wanting.
So, you know,
yeah.
And just the other day, I was like, "Can I get a shout out? Can I get people to help me get to 1,000 subscribers?" And then Comic Perch, I didn't even know he knew I existed. He said, "This guy's great. I like his." I was like, "Oh my god!" You know,
nice.
It was like, you know, it was like one of the biggest comic book names in the world. I didn't, you know. I was like, "Oh my god!" I'm telling my wife, and she's like, "Yeah, what do you want for dinner?" Keep me humble.
Is it the Comics by Perch? That guy, the YouTube guy. I didn't think he promoted anybody, so that's great.
Yeah,
nice to see him doing that.
I was like, my brain exploded. You know, like that GIF or whatever it is.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
I try to stay out of controversy. You know, I'm my own worst enemy, arguing with people. Sometimes I gotta knock it off. I tell myself every day, don't do it, and then I hit send, and get stupid stuff. But
yeah, sometimes it catches you. You can try to stay out of it all you want. Sometimes it catches you, but
I know.
Yeah, just do your best with it. Yeah.
I'm still waiting for my hater. Sooner or later, I gotta get that one guy who hate everything I tweet. He's got to say something underneath it.
Yeah. I got somebody that downvotes every video I got. I don't know who it is, but now I'm like, if he doesn't downvote my video, I feel like left out. I'm like, it wasn't even worth downvoting.
I forget what actor that said that. He goes, you know your career's on the wane when your stalkers stop.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So you got you got an active campaign. Oh, Marcus is like telepathic. You got an active campaign, Scribbles. Right?
Yeah, wrapping that up now. That's a 200-page sketchbook. There's been a lot of talk about it, about that I'm mad that it didn't make any money or things like that. See, I get caught up in controversy whether I want it or not, and I'm like, I'm thrilled. It's done extremely well for a sketchbook. I'm kind of shocked. Honestly, it was kind of like a buffer project. It was a way for me to also learn about doing campaigns. I just thought, man, this would be great to have all this work in print. All this behind the scenes stuff. It's maybe 10 different comic books. It's all of the Crusader stuff, by the way, cool. In full layout form.
That was excellent. That to me, that was like perfection, like comic books. That was
thank you.
Great art,
The writer was really great too. We had a lot of fun, and we had big plans for doing.
I could have bought that for 100 issues.
I could have drawn it for 100 issues. It would have been great. And even when I get onto projects now, I'm just like, as long as you don't. I just had so many things pulled out from under me before it really got going, and it's like these kinds of comics, man, they gotta go for like a couple years. You guys don't even do a year worth anymore. So
that Mark Millar was 100% right when he said that. Not having a creative team for a year,
Yeah. And finally, when I got to the point where I felt like I could do it, it's just not even a thing anymore. There's like, you get 3 issues tops, maybe, and I'm like, oh man. So again, I think Crusaders was like 3 or 4 issues. Oh, that was it.
Yeah, that was,
it really blows, but it was fun. It was fun doing it.
If only, and I pray that there's more Nora Saga. That was just really, it was so good. Everything about that comp, like to the point, like I was hoping it would be a complete story, and I was going to give it to my niece.
Yeah. We got a lot planned for it, so hopefully we can get back to that. But that's kind of the thing, is that we're in this environment that doing a long form story is really difficult. And like I was talking about this idea today about because my book Shank that I'm working on is going to be 64 pages, and there's so much character stuff that I'm coming up with that I can't really fit in the book and do some proper cool big scale action, as well as have character development and all these other things. So I was thinking, well, what if I did like side stories online that people can just read and get to know the characters more, so that what I'm wanting to know is like, do I do that before or after? Can I write it so that they can get you? But see, then they'll see there's like no action. I didn't want any action in that one. That would be straight up like the life in that town, getting to know the characters and all that, because you only get a little bit of it. But man, I would love the ability to do like the manga style, or old school American style, where you get on a monthly schedule or bi-monthly, every 2 months, and you build up an audience. And that, I come from a time where that was still a thing, so there was always this thing: your first issue does well, second issue drops off, third issue drops off even more. But if you can manage to keep going and go to that 4th issue, you'll probably start seeing a rise in that. And if you keep going, you'll build your audience from that point on. No, people make it to 6 issues now, 6 issue runs, 6 issue runs, 6 issue runs. You're ending right when you're starting,
6 issue runs, so they can put it in a trade paperback and then sell that, because people, people aren't.
So now we're in this place where that's the thing. We have to do these small truncated storylines. And hey, Phil's in the house. What's up, Phil? And yeah, I mean, I feel like, gosh, I grew up reading Claremont X-Men,
Right.
you know.
I was just going to say that Claremont, you could have this world-shaking cosmic battle, and then the next issue they're playing baseball and Storm's going clothes shopping, and you didn't mind.
They had time to kind of do that, you know, to have fun with it and to get to know the characters, you know. But they're building up story the whole time. But that's another thing too, is that those old Claremont issues. So this is kind of what I'm trying in my book. Is like when you read a Claremont book, it takes you like 15 minutes or more, you know, because every page. I don't want to get that verbose. I mean, that was a little crazy, but
he was borderline like purple prose, you know.
But I don't feel like my 75 to eventually $1.75 went for nothing. Like I felt like I was getting my money's worth on those pages.
the Chris Claremont, John Byrne X-Men, you know,
yeah,
and the Walt Simons, and ask me tomorrow, and this is the best comic book ever made. This is the best comic book ever. You know what I mean? That's It depends on what I had for breakfast that day. I
was a big fan of their run on X Factor, Louise and Walt.
Yeah,
that stuff was great. Before I got into Larry Stroman with Peter David writing, that was some interesting stuff. I don't know. What is it?
That comic. I will get the board version after reading. They're going.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like, I definitely want to do because I get a lot of comments from people overseas that can't get books or what have you, and it's like, do I want to do a digital version? And I probably will, because I've read a lot of digital comics that I couldn't get a hold of. I understand that plight. I know that a lot of people are worried about theft and sending it out, but a lot of my comics got read because they were put on those sites. Nobody ever would have read them. And so, like, there's one site that I go to or have gone to in the past for pirating. I don't even think it's there anymore, but there was a little heart thing. So you can like it if you liked it after you read it. And mine would always have more hearts than a lot of the other books around. So I always like, somebody's reading these. This is great. So I don't know. I look at it a little differently in that I understand that idea of
I'm going through like an existential crisis when it comes to digital. Like what, for my comic, do I offer a digital tier? Because this is going to sound arrogant, but like people are sending me the digital PDFs to read comics before and I'm like, only once did I read it because the guy was coming on the next day. You know what I mean? But other than that, like, I'll wait and buy the paper comics. I'm an old fart. I want paper comics.
Same here.
But
I don't really like reading them online.
Is that cutting off my nose to spite my face? Like, well, some people like, well, I'm not buying it because it's not digital, you know. And I want people to like my stuff, you know.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's another thing that's important to consider. I mean, our generation wants paper comics.
Right.
But there is a whole generation, if not 2 generations worth of kids that do not want physical media.
Right.
They don't want to have stacks and stacks of comic books. They love getting their phone and flipping through the latest story, and then they're going into the mall to talk to their friends or whatnot. And they got their little emo, and the only people servicing them right now are these web comics things. So I'm like, there's a whole. It's not that people left comics. It's just different generations have moved on to other forms of them. So it's either we cater only to our particular generation.
Is my audience going to be 55-year-old guys? You know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with that either. Yeah. I mean, I'm making comics, at least the subject and the visuals and all that are for a very particular couple generations of American comic fans with hints of manga and other kinds of things, but it's largely straight up old school American. I've often wondered, is some kid even going to have see any kind of value in this? A kid who's playing Valorant or whatever video game, you know, my stuff, I don't know if it looks like any of that, or who knows if any of that's got stories. I don't know. Kids today in their malls. Yeah. I don't know where they hang out now. I don't know.
I know. Where do they go?
Online, I guess.
They don't hang out. They all sit.
They're on the phone. Yeah.
On 4th of July, I found out there's like 100 kids on my block, but I have never seen kids playing on my block. They must all be home playing on their video machines.
And that's right.
Yeah. How's that sound like an old man? I said before, I'm one of 7 kids, and all my brothers and sisters all have about 5 kids each, and some of those kids now have kids, and they all read manga. So like, and I'm kooky Uncle John that's into comics, so we'll get together for a wedding or whatever, and they talk manga, and I sit there and just listen, because I can't talk to them about the Wizard or
I'm the Wizard. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't care. They're not interested, but they're not disrespectful, And it's funny because as they get older, they look through my record collection. I'm all into punk rock.
They're gonna look through that comic collection before long.
Now when they come over, they're starting to like, oh wow, look at this. I'll show them Fantastic Four #1, and they're like, oh my god, but they're talking to me about One Punch Man, and
but the comics I was into, the generation before me couldn't stand those either. They couldn't stand Rob Liefeld. I hated
Jack Kirby when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I try not to hate on it.
Arc, there's a character arc with these kids.
Well, and manga for me was I know these kids think that they created manga or something. I mean, it seems like when I listen to like reviews of anime and stuff, it's like, oh, Generation made this great. I'm like, dude, I had Akira. Your guys' stuff kind of blows. I mean,
I read Lone Wolf and Cub. I did. when it came out.
Yeah, I mean, we had great stuff.
Appleseed has a wonderful comic out called Horace Hoover. He's
hey, thanks,
artist. Great comic. One of my favorite comics coming out.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Rich is, I think, deep in the grind or something. I have not heard from him in a minute, and he hadn't been around. But yeah, hopefully we can get Super Fun Sunday going.
Yeah, Wizard Sleeves. If you look at my videos, I do Monday music, and I've been showing my vinyl collection. People have been asking about it because I always talk about my record collection. At one point, I was a record collector and a comic book collector, and I was the guy that you went to for new music. I don't know new music anymore. And
I miss
I'm definitely an old man when it comes to music. My niece and nephew play songs. I'm like, it's like that scene from what George C. Scott. Turn it off.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of crazy stuff, modern and stuff. It's just like whatever hits me. But yeah, I mean, another thing, like with these kids in manga, I think comics are doing better than ever for manga, right? So the readers have never left. The thing about music too is we've been in this rut for 20 plus years or more of this pop synth group pop crap. I don't even corporate trash, just awful stuff. But then you look around YouTube, you see whole generations, young people, even like little kids that are drumming. They're playing live music. Yeah. They're doing live, real, from the soul music. And I think we're gonna have a renaissance of music if it ain't happening already.
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of a turnaround. Something's happening. I do think.
I think the same's coming for comics.
I think it's going to happen for comics too, and I think Marvel and DC are going to be like, people are going to be like, yeah, I did like them. Those are pretty good, but there's going to be a new image or something. That's what I'm really hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right around the corner.
One of my nephew's friends was talking to me about music, and he was just like, you ever hear this band? They're so good. And he's like, Led Zeppelin. And I started laughing. I was like, oh, you got me. And he's like, no. Have you heard of them? He was totally serious. I'm like, have I heard of Led Zeppelin? Sit down, kid. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna tell you about Led Zeppelin and doing drugs on the beach. Quoting Robert Plant lyrics to girls to try to pick them up.
That's like who was it? It was somebody here in Comicsgate, young guy. I can't remember, but I made some reference to Sanford and Son, and they were like, "What is that?" I'm like,
greatest theme song in the history of TV.
Yeah, like Sanford and Son. You don't know what Sanford and Son is? And they were like, "No." And this kid was like 20-something years old. I'm like, "How can this be? This doesn't make any sense."
Sanford and Son yesterday. We started up a generator at work, and it made a gunshot noise. And I put, "This is it. This is the big one." And nobody knew. I laughed. Nobody knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's wild, man. It really it's interesting getting older, man. I tell you what, I start understanding my grandparents a lot more. You know, when I had my grandpa, and I was trying to get him a DVD player and trying to show him how to work it and how to plug it in. He's like, "I just want my videotapes," and I'm like, "I'll never understand you old people." And then now I'm like, I'm staying at you know, Blu-rays and DVDs, and that's it. I don't know if they come out with crystal cubes. I don't give a damn. I don't care.
I'm not even joking. If my wife leaves me, I can't watch TV anymore. I don't
watch it now. I don't watch TV anymore.
Like, last night we were sitting up, you know, having dinner, and she's like, "Oh, you want to watch something?" I'm like, "Well, what's on?" She's like, "What do you want to watch?" I'm like, "We could do this." I don't know what is even on anymore. Guys are told me about TV. There's too many shows. I don't have time. I
always in those situations, I always go to like nature programs or like, Nova or something like that. That's just says like I can always enjoy those, Yeah. But like I find myself throwing on a movie nowadays, and man, I tell you, if it's not hooking me, I'll just leave. I'm done. Like I'm not wasting my time at all. And like everybody's talking about this Rebel Moon movie, and I'm like, I kind of want to see it just because of how bad everybody says it is. But it doesn't sound like good bad. It sounds like I feel awful for how much time I wasted bad. And that's the worst.
I'm not even joking. If I have time to watch TV, I'm reading comics. You see, I got 20 long boxes of comics to read. And, I don't have time to watch TV shows that I don't like. And here's a funny thing is my wife and I.
I'm married with children. That's a great one.
My wife and I have been watching Family Matters.
Oh, really? Old school Family Matters.
So I was like, all right, season 1, episode 1, and every night at dinner we watch an episode of Family Matters. We're at the second to last season right now. I got to say that I hated it when it came, because I'm that kind of guy. If anything is popular, I'm like, I don't. Everybody was doing the Urkel and all this stuff in the 90s or the 80s.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Like,
I didn't want to watch it.
Nothing. Now I'm like, this kid's a physical comedy genius. I'm look at the way he was tripping and he saved himself, and I'm like, wow.
Marcus brings up Reacher, and I really did enjoy that, but it got to the point where it got a little boring. Like I didn't finish the first season, but I want to finish it because I want to see how it ends. But it was starting to lose me because it was such a simple plot that they were dragging out. So I'm like, oh my God. It's same thing with comics. It's like you could have done this entire season as 1-2 episodes tops in the old days and had a lot more story going on in a whole season. So like I want a lot more story and a lot more action. But it was good. I really like the guy playing Reacher. I think this guy's got potential. I'm curious where he's going to go. Yeah, well, I don't know. He's such a baby face though. But like, I mean, if they didn't already have Captain America, and if that wasn't already good, he's prime for Captain America.
I never liked Chris Evans.
It's a little big though.
I
tell you what, I liked the first Avenger, and I liked the second one with the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah.
But when I've only read a handful of Captain America books. I mean, I read, and oddly enough, the writer that I liked the most on Captain America was Mark Waid. It was Mark Waid and Ron Garney.
He's a good writer.
He was great. Mark Waid and Ron Garney did one of the best Cap runs I've read. It was and there was like this moment in it where he really emphasized how important his shield was to him. Like he was saving all these sailors out of a submarine that Hydra had taken over, and he manages to get him out of the ejection chute. To shoot him out to out to the surface, and he's trying to save as many sailors as he can, but he needs one free hand, and he lets go of his shield to save another sailor, swim to the top as fast as he could. So then it's them sitting in the raft, and the the guy's like, boy, you sure saved us, or whatever. And he's like, and then the captain's like, well, it looks like it's going to be a hot one. I hope we get safe soon. And he's like, it's no problem. I come equipped with shade. And he reaches back to get his shield, and then he's just like, oh, there was like this moment where he realized he lost his shield. And it was like,
man, to look for it,
yeah, it was, I'd never read it. And then when I saw the first Avenger, and I know people don't like that movie, it was sappy or old, but
I loved it.
I almost cried when he jumped on that grenade, and I'm like, the selflessness of this fucking guy. He's not even a super soldier yet, and he's willing to jump on a grenade to save everybody around him. I love this guy. I love this guy. I think I love Captain America.
My problem is that what he wore the Captain America outfit for like 1.5 movies.
Yeah.
Because, Captain America doesn't sell outside of America. You can't sell Captain America to China. They called him the Avenger outside of the States. You know what I mean? He didn't even have the shield. He had that like weird piece of metallic debris in Endgame and everything. I was like, to me, if you're embarrassed by the source material, don't do it.
Right?
Captain America, keep him as Captain America. He's Captain America. And
I think it's more about the corporate. I don't know if it's about embarrassment.
Yeah.
As much as it is about a corporation trying to make a product that can be consumed worldwide. So they're trying to make it as vanilla and plain as possible to be consumed, like a trough of food for cattle, and it's awful. And I think the rest of the world would probably appreciate a good, solid Captain America movie as it is, as a symbol of who that character is, and classic American pride, etc.
China rejected the Shang-Chi movie,
and if they don't like it, that's too bad for them, Yeah. They rejected. Yeah, that mindless pandering to them.
Right.
I mean, they got their own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If China wanted to see a kung fu guy, China's making them.
They like Transformers, and they love that.
They should have made an American Shang-Chi movie,
They had those Transformers up. That's what they want. They don't want no kung fu guy. They've had generations of kung fu guys.
I wanted to get back to what you said. You wanted to be a truck driver.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Funny? I wanted to be a truck
driver.
Still
my fallback job. Oh, did you?
I still do. I kind of have this, my back is starting to hurt. How many more years left do I have to be digging trenches and, 4-inch galvanized pipes and stuff like that? All right, I could drive a truck, and my wife could sit with me. We could listen to audiobooks. It's like a romantic American.
Well, they're automatic now. My mom and her husband, let's see, gosh, that was years and years ago at this point, but they drove a truck cross country for a while, and they had one of these big giant Freightliner 18-wheelers with the big cab and got bunk beds in there and refrigerators in there and all that stuff. And it was automatic. They just put it in drive and go. It wasn't one of these things with 14, 16 gears, man. None of that. So you could do it today and travel the U.S., but it ain't easy. They love to screw you on your time. Most of my family were truck drivers,
that's what I'm
Navy
hoping,
guys.
I'll get my pension and then maybe drive truck or whatever. When I can still work, you make some extra money.
Yeah.
But my only thing is I don't want to drive a truck anywhere near New York City. Oh my God!
Oh, that was rough.
Walking in New York City, much less driving a truck through it.
Or going through going through Vegas, oddly enough, trying to drive that. They've put in a new bridge now that you don't have to, but before they put in that new bridge, you had to take your truck down that windy switchback road next to the dam. And that was scary, very scary. Yeah, but now there's a bridge just goes right across.
Oh, it's funny. I just was like, I got married when I was 35, so I was like, in my early 30s, like, I guess I'm not getting married. I'm a freak, nobody loves me. So I was like, I had this romantic vision of like, I'm just gonna drive my truck. I'll have a box of comics over here, and I'll pull over it. I'll read my comics at night. Every time I come home, I'll just swap out another long box, drive, eat chili at a truck stop and read some comics. That's a nice life. I could do that. I could.
Wizard Sleeves is asking how soon can I fill a long box of your work, sir? You mean everything I've done could probably fit in a long box, or you mean just of my own creation? Because that, depending on how the market goes, it could be a few years, maybe.
What was your first comic?
My first ever comic story is I did, I think, 10 pages in Bob Ludke's comic, the guy that owned that comic store that I went to, one of the first ones that I went to, Kaboom Comic Stuff. He has a book called Template. Okay. And it was, and I did the opening sequence of issue number 5, I think. But that's the first story work I ever had published. I did the first page of Arachnus number 4 from that was like a guy with spider legs. I also did a pinup for Hart Fisher for Boneyard Press. Okay. Way back in the day. He was one of the first guys to give me work because I was in high school and I was going to every convention I could get and, showing people my stuff. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll give you a job, and he never paid me. And then I get this notice that he filed for bankruptcy, so I'll never get paid. And I just laughed because I'm like, you published the first thing I ever had published. I got all the payment I needed, out of that situation. But thank you for letting me know that I'll never get paid. 20 years later, whenever I got that notice.
Bankrupt. Oh,
but yeah, those are good times. I got a lot of indie books. I got hooked up with Antarctic Press, and I was working on. This is at the height of Warrior Nun too. So we were working on Warrior Nun and what is it, Shotgun Mary, all those nun-related books.
Those were my 2 read. I didn't even realize I have some unread Kelsey Shannon in my box.
Oh, maybe there was a few Shotgun Marys. Asad Ribic did one. You remember him, the painter? Super popular these days.
Yes. Yeah, he did that Thor one that was in the movie that caused a bit of a
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he started at Antarctic. His American run started at Antarctic. He did his own book called Codename Scorpio, I think is what it was called, and then he did one Warrior Nun book and one Shotgun Mary, fully painted. Amazing. I remember getting we had before the computer days. We had a shelf that had little file folders in it, and it would have everybody's artwork stacked up for each book. And we'd get his pages in, and they were fully painted, but they were smaller. We were doing 11 by 17. His were like reduced somehow. They were like the manga size paper I get, and they were fully painted and smelled like cigarettes. Like all the way from Croatia, you could still smell the cigarettes on that art. So I can only imagine the people that buy my art, where they're going through the similar situation. Yeah, good times.
So you got a Nexus thing coming out. You got Scribbles coming out. Let me put this back up. And and what else?
Yeah. So this year's pretty big. I got the Scribbles I'm fulfilling now. I got one page I'm trying to finish up of the Accent Level Up story. That's I think a 10-page story from that book. It's like this fighting sequence, like a video game fighting video game. Okay, Shane sells it better than I do, but it's a lot of fun. I did some of the most detailed work I think I've ever done on it. I think it's going to be a killer story. Then I'm coloring Kit Carter with Aaron Lopresti. Awesome. I think Aaron is doing some of the best work of his life. It's so gorgeous.
I can't wait for Kit Carter. That looks amazing. And Wraith of God was one of my favorite comics to come out.
It's great. Yeah. I'm thrilled to be working with him.
You said you're coloring it. You do it in old school with paintbrushes and everything?
No. This one I'm doing computer because I don't know that he wants it done by hand. I think we're just going to do it old school. Okay. What's funny is I'd love to color him old school. Like I have all the old palettes. I could color him with the flat color exactly how they used to, with a little bit of extra something for the modern audience. But when you see, I think it's hard because when you see that next to like a fully painted, like for instance, what Kyle Ritter does on Cyberfrog, that is so dazzling, and you're just like, wow. And then you see the flat color next to it; it looks like it's unfinished. So we're in this like balancing act where, like, I'm still gonna put the fancy pants stuff on top, but I'm gonna try to keep it in a very controlled, old school kind of way. So it's fun. It's fun trying to keep it rooted in that old school feel of like those old style sci-fi comics, but still with a modern twist. We can still make it poppy and fun.
You kind of have to. You know, I love the old coloring and stuff to the point like if he's, you know, I was talking about the Jack Kirby, Stan Lee Fantastic Four. If I see them in a collected omnibus recolored, it really bothers me. You know, it doesn't look right. You know,
it doesn't look right. Mignola colored that way. I like him flat color. I want to do my book. Shank is not a painted book, but kind of as a painted book. So it'll be like colored flat and very minor grads here and there, but it's all going to be done by hand. So that's going to be interesting.
Cool.
It'll be very different.
do you draw on a computer or do you draw on paper?
I did most of my career. I was one of the first guys to draw in Photoshop alone, and there was very few of us back in the day. So most of my career, almost everything I've done has been digital. And lately, I've been feeling that. I mean, lately, I say within the last 5-10 years, honestly, this has been hitting me, where I just getting tired of all of this. You know, like I'm wanting to have that tactile sense and get back to our kind of roots. And then this whole thing with the AI starts. And then, you know, it's just been this, there's like this calling. And I can see my Instagram feed is filled with new and old artists alike who are all going digital a couple years ago. Now my feed is filled with all of them doing it by hand.
Funny that you said that, because I was just going to say I've been noticing a lot of artists saying, you know, I miss paper and pens. And
yes. So I'm feeling like, okay, there will be a place.
Changing.
You're going to have this place for your digital guys and your AI artists. You'll let them do their thing. I mean, that might be how we see Superman, perfectly iconic, rendered by AI. You know, that might be how we're going to see Superman and Batman, as long as they, you know. But I think that the renaissance of comics, much like music, like I was saying about music, going back to live, the sloppiness of your fingers on strings and the nuances of that only the human ear can't pick, digital can't reproduce.
Right.
These are the things that are going to be important to a lot of us in the future. That's why it was like, it's important for me to get back to doing it by hand. And that's why I do that show, The Graybeards, with Aaron Lopresti and David Williams and Gary Martin, is that's all about doing it raw by hand in front of everybody. Good or bad, we're gonna have fun doing it the old way, you know, and that kind of that sparked something in me. Now I hate it. Every time I have to go back to the computer, it's really painful.
So now I got to ask you, because I can't even talk anymore. I consider you like one of the top comic book artists, you know, around.
Thank you.
So how do you feel about all of this? Not AI. I know how everybody feels about AI, but I'm talking about like computer aided stuff. You know, like take it. You know. I guess I like taking a 3D model of a car and then inserting it in. You know,
I've done all of that. I'm one of the most open that you'll find about all that. I even told, I think, I can't remember whose show it was on, but I told everybody that I traced Steve Root Nexus for a headshot in one of the Triplets books. I'm redoing it because I'm redoing it all by hand, that first issue and the consecutive, all 3 issues. I'm doing them by hand for Triplets. But I was... Sometimes it's hard to draw that car or that hand or that building. And it's like, I'm on a limited time frame. I'm losing money every second that I'm trying to draw this building. Am I trying to prove that I can draw a building, or am I trying to tell a story? I'm trying to tell a story. So my opinion of it is that these are all tools in the toolbox. As long as you're not trying to subjugate, or what do you call it? Subterfuge. You're not trying to lie about it.
Right.
Some people lie about their reference, and then they get found out, and it's embarrassing, and blah blah blah. It's like we all use reference, even if you're not tracing it or you're not using a computer. I still look at photos of clothing wrinkles to get it right. That's reference. I'm reference constantly. Yeah. But
the example I'm always thinking about is it's a Marvel comic where it was obviously they put it in a bathtub, but you see it's in front of the door. You know what I mean? It was just. Oh,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That panel too.
I wonder that might have been a case of just using a 3D model, getting it done, and not thinking about the logistics of the room that you're in. I mean, I don't know. I use that kind of stuff to help me get more accurate.
Hollywood, big fan of Hollywood. Yeah.
I mean, I use that stuff to get more accurate, not as a way to speed me up, because I was never really that fast back in the day. I'm a lot faster now because I gave all of that up. That I think the digital makes everything way slower because trying to do a circle for a car wheel, you gotta rub its feet, and you gotta talk nice to it, and like, hey baby, how about giving me a circle this time?
I'm amazed that I have a YouTube channel. How badly I am with computers. I still don't know how to. If I'm making a video and I mess up, I got to start all over again. I can't edit.
Yeah, I don't
know what I'm doing.
It makes things slower, honestly, for me anyway. And the coloring, and also you can zoom in. And everybody's painting comics now digitally. I mean, that's we're doing full painted comics. I mean, so I don't know. I've kind of felt this real need to get back to at least the roots that I came from, which there's the coloring and the interior work is a lot less labored over, and you have a really nice cover, and it's designed to get story out quickly and economically. And like, I want to have this kind of like balance between the two, where it's like, yeah, I'm doing the best work that I can within the time frame that I'm giving myself to do this book, not the best of all time. Because if you give me infinite amount of time and money, I'm going to give you Travis Charest. I'm going to knock Travis Charest out of the park. For who's Travis Charest? Kelsey Shannon just walked in the door. You get endless time and money, you can make that kind of thing happen. This is about economics as well. It is about also not letting people wait so long, because you wait so long, people forget.
Yeah,
they're moving on to other things. Oh yeah, I forgot you had a book. You want to get on it. So it'll be this combination of my best work / what I can do for you in a timely manner.
I was wondering if comics were going to change more towards like a European model, where or some writer and artist will spend like an entire year and then just give you this oversized hardcover, amazing comic. You know what I mean? And then you don't mind. It
depends. I mean, like if it were Travis Charest, I would give him a year to do a book. No problem. I'll pay you for every time you turn in a page. I'll give you a year. As a fan, I'll wait. But at some point, the story enters into frame. It's like, okay, is this worth? I mean, is art going to be the only thing holding this book up that I'm waiting so long for? Is this the only thing of value in this book? Okay, well, the story has to equally be as good, worthy of that time spent. So now you got story and art have to be some of the greatest the world has ever seen. And you start losing value. The more time you wait, then it starts just becoming, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
I wanted my book and now I got nothing. So it's a delicate balance. I think it's the yin and yang. You got to have a little bit of both.
I'm a weirdo when it comes to crowdfunding comics. I crowdfund board games. Like I pay for it, and then I always say like 3 weeks later, I don't even remember that money. I would have spent it on a Burger King or something.
Oh, I get books all the time. I forgot all about it.
And then they show up. It's like a gift from my past. Oh wow! Look at this. So I'm pretty cool with waiting.
I kind of like that too. I mean, like there's a lot of books that I bought, and there's still a couple that I have not forgotten about. and I mention them all the time. I bought, and they're still hanging out there, and I'm still have hope because I want the book. I want the book, and I'm patient, so I still have hope that I'm going to get those books. But you never know.
I was waiting to see how long it was going to take you to light up a cigarette. I'm like, I'm keeping sometimes
I'm holding court. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where, Adam Hughes, I'll give him time. Like if Adam Hughes came out with a crowdfunding, he's like, I got half of this done. I just, it's probably going to be another year and a half before I get the others done, but I need the money to complete it.
Yeah,
I'd be like, absolutely, let's do this. I know Adam Hughes, he's done hundreds of comic books. If he doesn't fulfill this, is the end of him, or at least as far as I'm concerned. So there's a lot riding on him actually pursuing it. It's worth the wait because it's excellent work, that kind of thing. It's a but if I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know. I can't think of an example offhand, but if somebody who is usually coming out more often, it's got a much more serviceable style. If Mark Bagley comes out with a book, hey, waiting 2 years for a Mark Bagley book. You better have my book, when you say you're going to have it. You know what I'm saying?
I just got to know if AV8R Surge backs my book. I know there's going to be one guy with a computer program, keeping track of me. Not the pressure's on, AV8.
Yeah, I'm already pushing it with my Scribbles book. So I'm trying to wrap that up and get it out to the printer and get out to the distributor ASAP. I got the Diaz boys handling it. They've got a great track record, many years of making books and fulfilling, and even fulfilling for others. So there's a lot of trust built up with them. So I want to get that taken care of before I move on to anything else. I got big news for Shank I want to release, but I'm not even going to talk about it until I get that finished first. So that's happening hopefully within this month. So
I had a couple of setbacks with my comic, and then I
it happens.
And then I met a couple of guys. I met Nick Axe, and he's been giving me wonderful advice. And then I talked to why can't I think of his freaking Critical Blast? He does fulfillment. So we're gonna have like a group chat one of these days and set up like campaign expectation. It's now I'm like super excited again. After I never ran a campaign before, and I understand if people are like, well, this guy's unproven. But guys, I'm getting like the professionals back behind me.
Yeah, it's a gamble. I mean, I gamble on some new guys too, and I've been very pleased. I've gotten my books. Some guys, there was several fellas. I got a whole shelf full up to here, right there. That's all that. Jawbreakers, U.S. Assassin, Downcast, Monster MD, Samurai versus Dinosaurs, Flying Fortress. I mean, it goes on. Foreign Agent. Haven't read them all though. I need to read them all. I get them faster than I can read them, so I need to read them.
One of my New Year's resolutions is to read all my crowdfunded books as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's good.
I already showed this stack of comics over. I put them on top of it, then I get new comics, and they go on top of it. Next thing you know, that comic that I couldn't wait to read is months behind. So I'm trying to pull all my crowdfunded. Old Marvels, you could wait. You've been waiting 20 years, but crowdfunded stuff I want to read
and review them if you can as well. Oh yeah, Chad, I got his book in recently. I started reading that. It's a lot of fun. I need to finish that. A Critical Blast, also a great. He was going to be doing mine before I was kind of like hatching plans with the Diaz brothers. So
the Fiendish people are in it. Oh man, did you read Fiendish?
Not yet, but I got it. I'm ready to go on that one too.
It's funny because everybody was talking about it and I missed it. You can't pay attention to everything that's going on. Things slip by the cracks.
That's definitely a New Year's resolution for me as well, to actually read some of these books. I feel it's hard for me to want to give reviews because of who I am. And if I say anything critical, it could damage someone. So I'm always rooting for other people. This is why I like Well-Read User and those guys doing reviews, and I champion them fiercely. Please, review these things harshly. They set us on the right track with Nora Saga, which they did a review of the first 3 issues, and they brought up similar things that I was thinking about the story, and we got together, went over their things of what they did, what they thought was wrong, what we thought was wrong, and we reorganized and hit the end of the book really strong. And that was because of critical feedback.
That's real feedback. That's real good faith feedback.
Mm-hmm.
On my channel, I pretty much I try to stay positive. I try to. So I only if I'm showcasing a comic, I don't call it a review. I say it's a showcase because you already knew I liked it. You know what I mean? And I will say I didn't like this because of that or whatever. But I don't have time to rip apart a comic book that I didn't particularly like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's enough that somebody hates it. You can find somebody who hates it and watch them. But if I'm showing I want to share why I love comics. I get excited. And when I saw Fiendish, I didn't know who Renee was. She was just another. But I read Fiendish 1 and 2, and I was like, oh my god, I got to talk to this person. And then I found out who she was, and I love that. It was a.
She's weaving epics. I mean, she's got a whole epic she's doing.
And then she inspired me because she's doing all this world building stuff. And I'm like, well, who's going to read my comic book after finding out what this woman is doing? So I up my game. I'm making, one of the stories, if I make it to issue 6, it's about a magician. I'm making the language that he's using. And, it's all because I met this woman who's super talented. So I think this is exciting. Talking to you has inspired me. Like I said, I want my artwork to be as good as a comic book drawn by Kelsey Shannon. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I'm not doing it. Otherwise,
I think you got somebody. I think you're working with top-notch talent. I think it's going to be a slick-looking book. Yeah. Off to a great start.
He's gonna. Other people.
Now have patience. That's something I'm seeing a lot of people. There's all this talk about, I got a YouTube and I got to do the books and I got to do. I'm like, I feel this antsiness to do it all right now without even really learning about what you're doing. It's like, have some patience. I mean, like, this is one of the reasons I haven't been on fire to just do my own books, is because I personally don't feel like this is going anywhere anytime soon. And I'm taking my time. I'm enjoying being here and working with other people, letting people get to know me and getting to know the audience as well. To me, this is the new paradigm, and I'm not rushing it. So there's a lot I got to learn about being a YouTuber. I've learned a lot in these last 7 years. I'm a lot better spoken than I was, even though that wasn't said correctly. But you know what I mean? I was all whispers, just like you listen to Ethan's first couple videos. And it's like, hello, my name is Ethan Van Skyver. And now he's like, Rah! So
now it's like the Howard Stern show for comics.
Yeah, you can learn how to do this, but you gotta, if you want to sell a comic, you want it to be a great comic, you got to spend some time on that first.
I'm on my 3rd year of doing YouTube, and if you watch my first couple of videos, it's okay. This is Spider-Man and
yeah, same here.
I couldn't even fill up 10 minutes. It was like 6 minutes of me rambling, going I was embarrassed. I was terrified that my wife was going to come down, like I was doing something wrong, talking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even my friends were like, I can't watch your videos.
I still have trouble talking to myself because, like, I want to do. I've been really inspired by other YouTubers, like even the Minecraft YouTubers have a really great delivery for YouTube videos, and they're creating work, they're building things and whatnot. So I'm like, this could be done for comics as well. So I really want to do something like that, a little more pre-done. But I forgot the point of that was what we were talking about.
I just wanted to address. I wanted to address this comment. Oh, where did it go?
Now I remember talking to myself. Though I'm in my room talking to myself. It's weird. Like, I'm talking to an audience, but it's different with a live stream. Like we're all here, we're talking, we're having a conversation. When you're by yourself doing one of these videos, it's like, who the hell am I talking to?
I know. You get self-conscious. You kind of realize how silly it all is, right?
Yeah. But you just got to let go of all that. You got to, I mean, back in my theater day, I did theater when I was in high school, and it was the same way. I mean, you get out there and the lights are shining in your face. People are staring you in the face going, well, you know, like, so it's the same thing. And you just got to cut loose and talk, you know, and you either, I did personality will come through or it won't, you know.
I did theater in college, and I'm like, and trying to do my lines, whispering. It was like Gollum or something like that. By the end, I was like doing like skits that were people like, dude, this is so offensive. I'm like, it's funny to me.
Yeah, just be yourself. Yeah. Be yourself and have no fear. You know, it's like you start thinking about it. I think about it, you know, in this way that, you know, this is my delusion. You know, you guys are figments of my imagination. I can make this up. I can make this work however I want. I can either make a good time or a bad time. Well, you know, I'm going to choose good time. We're going to have a good time.
Somebody asked for the link to my comment. It's not out yet. I'm hoping. I don't want to give a date but I'm hoping within a month I'll have a campaign ready to launch, and then
start
screaming it to everybody. I'm going to go outside at the supermarket and hand people flyers. Everybody will know. But it's
before you launch, do what you're doing now. You start teasing out little hints about your character, little motivations, a little art here and there. Start greasing the wheels and getting people interested before you put that sign up out. You know, get people kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, I was like, am I doing this too soon? Am I doing this too soon? But I also don't think my star is gonna rise too much higher. So I think this is the just right time. This is the golden.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. So are you good with public speaking? Could you give a speech in front of a crowd?
Now I can. Yeah. I mean, if push comes to shove, you know, if we were at a convention and somebody's like, get up and say something to the crowd, I probably could fine. You know, it's not that big a deal. I'm a lot more used to it now than I used to be, but not that I wouldn't stumble. But the problem is that the thing is now is I'm not afraid to stumble. I'll go ahead and stumble, mess up a word.
What's the worst? Like I remember my job, we had this big function and a big party going on, and you know, everybody's like, wear your suit and ties, it's a big deal. So I go in, and next thing you know, one of the guys hands me a microphone and says, you're the MC.
That would be scary. So you're not prepared for it.
I was like, okay. By the end of the night, I was like, yeah, you know, I had people, you know, it was funny, but I had no idea. Nobody told me.
Yeah, I don't want to. Let's get that straight. I don't like doing public speaking, but I could if I have to. Yeah. I'll just get up there and be like, bruh, why did you leave me?
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for 2 hours now, and
good conversation, man.
I usually try to keep these an hour, but man, you were like the most easygoing, fun guy to talk to, man. I could have talked all night long.
So are you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is good.
What do you got there? I thought that was beef jerky. Is that tobacco?
No, that's tobacco. Everybody thinks that a bag of chips. Beef jerky.
Yeah. I got.
Yeah, this is comic book talk. I love this.
I got a big can of popcorn.
Yeah.
At any moment, I'm ready to munch out and be a slob. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting there reading comic books.
Oh man, you're making me want to read some comic books right now.
Oh, good. That's what it's all about. Again, back in like 1974 when I started picking up comic books, we had Jim Shooters running Marvel Comics and X-Men. How can I not be this freak right now? You know,
I have where is it? I have this that I've been threatening to read for a minute, and I want to. You've read this, right?
Awesome. Yeah, I got the original copies. That's Jim Starlin. That is some of the matter of fact. I did a video on that, and I just talked about how that was such an important comic book to me growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
Oh my god, and that was like to the point now that they introduced Adam Warlock into the MCU, I was getting like protective. I'm like, that's my character.
That's why I got it, because I'm like, I want to know what I'm getting into, because I noticed them teasing them out, and I'm like, I know this book's been around for ages. I want to go see, and then I started reading it, and I was like, wow. I mean, this guy he obviously plays D&D or something. I mean, this guy, he's so thorough in his storytelling and stuff. So
that's Jim Starlin, man. That is awesome.
I've never read a Jim Starlin, so this will be my first.
I kind of envy you reading that for the first. I don't even want to spoil it, but it has such.
Okay. And then, all right, I'm going to read it, and then I'll come back to report to you. We'll have a Warlock.
Does it have the Marvel 2-in-1 annual in there too?
Oh, that's a good point. Let me see.
Because oh my God, that is one of the most important comic books of all time. And
Marvel 2-in-1 annual number 2.
Oh, there you go. You sit down and read that. You are in for a treat.
All right.
That is that Jim.
It's a lot. This is the kind of book I'm talking about where you don't feel like you got cheated. I mean, there is so much happening in this book.
Oh wow, Scorpio, thank you. Thank you. I always get a little embarrassed when people super chat. You know, I don't know. Like, do I dance? Like I don't know. You know,
dance.
I'm kind of nobody wants.
There you go.
Do I take clothes off or something?
That was our $10.
Thank you so much. Yeah. You know, it's funny because I just hit monetization, and so far for the month of January I made 27 cents. So I am.
That's about what I'm making now. Yeah. I don't monetize any of my videos, but I mean, the super chats. That's where people are really making money, you know, from some of these streams.
Yeah, but I watch Ethan. I'm like, oh my God, that just guy. He made a 4-hour video and he made my week's pay.
Yeah,
one night, you know.
Yeah, he's interesting though. I mean,
but he's entertaining. You know, not everybody can do it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm entertaining in a very different kind of way. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, we all have our gifts. I think that the trick is to like capitalize on those gifts in a way that you can market. You know, like I don't know. I feel like I have a quirky sense of humor. I'm a much better video editor than I am a live host. I think I can get my point across in like a simple edited video a lot better than I could in person. So I don't know. I just got to work your gifts. You know, you could get better at it. Like I said, I've gotten better at all this live streaming stuff.
Guys, go back and watch my first 3 or 4 videos. It's pathetic, you know. But I'm not deleting them. It's you know, I'm not big on that. That's like my history, you know.
Jetto used to look forward to my morning shows. Yeah, I kind of miss those, but I don't know. There's an unintended byproduct from live streaming that I'm very cautious about, and that's creating cult of personalities. You know, it's about having you there for me. You know, and your ups and downs are very tied to me and my personality, that kind of thing. I see this happening all around. It's a normal evolution of these kinds of things, and I'm not really into it.
It feeds your ego. And again, I'm nobody, guys, but I already feel like people are like, oh wow, you know, and then ask me, can I be on your show? And you start to get a little carried and full of yourself. So I try to ground myself, you know, and go upstairs and talk to my wife, and she dismisses everything. And what do you want for dinner? You know, I go to work and I'm getting yelled up by my foreman, and you know, I actually enjoy that. You know, again, this sounds terribly arrogant, and I don't mean it to be that way. But
no, I mean, it's something. I mean, it's fun to do. I do enjoy coming out here. I think everybody needs to kind of go with their gifts. I'm much more of an introvert naturally, so I've become a lot more extroverted in order to do any of this and to talk at all. I've had to kind of find my voice, but it's not my nature. I don't want to do this. I'd rather my work speak for it.
You know, comic books are an introvert's hobby.
Yeah.
What other hobbies do you do by yourself? You know, you sit in your chair and you read by yourself. Like you play Dungeons and Dragons, you need 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah.
You know, you're into sports, you need a team. You know, but comic books, everybody that I grew up with we're introverts, you know, and then you get more introverts. We talk about our comic books and like we're afraid of getting made fun of by people. You know what I mean? I was one of the rare extrovert comic book fans. You know.
I mean, you get me in a party, I'm gonna have some fun, but it's hard to get me to that party.
and like I guess contradictory. Like if I'm on like a panel and there's like 6 people, I shut up. I just sit there like this you know what I mean? Like one-on-one, I feel this is my format, you know. I have a guest and I can focus, like I'm watching your facial expressions, you know what I mean? Like, but when I'm one of the 6 guys, I'm like, I'm politely waiting for my turn, but that turn never happens. You gotta jump in.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard. Hey, what's up? Look at that.
Yeah, I will definitely come on. I you know, it's fun to go on other people's channels, you know, and then they're the boss, you know, and then you know, I don't know, I just like it. And to be honest, it's like thrilling to be invited. You're like, wow, you want me to come on? Who am I? You know, that's a lot a lot of fun.
So indeed.
I'm
always nervous. I'm always nervous.
Believe it or not, I get so nervous before these talks. I before we went live, I pop into the StreamYard and usually I sit there for like 7 minutes. Is this person even going to show up? I turned on, Kelsey was already there. I'm like, oh, and we started talking like gangbusters for 10 minutes before we even went live.
Like I said, I've gotten used to it these days. This is a lot easier for me to do these kinds of things, but it's only because I limit it now. I mean, I only do the Graybeards now, so now it's a little easier for me to come out and do a show. But when I was doing Jack's show, and then I would show up on Kings and do my own show, you feel, at least I did, I started feeling burnout big time. And it's like the only thing I'm really interested in is drawing comics. So I had to kind of protect my own energy. You know,
I could see that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But if it's your nature, if this is what you thrive on, then eat it up.
I want to talk about comic books. I want to talk about again, like I said, because of COVID, people weren't going out, and I like being with people. I like talking to people. So I was just like chomping at the bit. My wife is an extrovert. If nobody ever came to my house ever again, she'd be happy.
Yeah. Same here.
I have game nights. People come over. Like if I'm not streaming, it's because I'm having a game night. You know, I like being around people. So I was freaking out. So I was like, I guess I'm starting a YouTube channel. And now I'm talking to Kelsey, Shannon, Mike.
This is our virtual comic store. This is where we're hanging out talking comics.
Right. You're absolutely right. Because I go to the comic book store around me. It's 2 old guys like, comics are doomed. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to. I was like, And I also don't want to talk about drama. You know, like if this guy wants to fight with that guy, that's none of my business. I like both of them. And they could fight. I'm an adult. You know, my friends could not get along, but I could still be friends with that guy, and I could still be friends with that girl or whatever. You know, but whatever. I try to keep it. We're talking about Wally Wood over here. We're talking about Dark Circle Archie comics. You know,
I think that's what we need to be talking about. Just because we're at the precipice of losing everything that we loved, or moving into a new era where everything will be different. And either one of those is kind of scary. So we need to be kind of negotiating the future. You know, what do we want to keep with us?
Right.
What can we let go of?
It's an exciting and weird time. It's kind of scary as to be a comic book fan. The young kids. Really, does anybody have kids that read comic books? I don't know. Kelsey, do you have children?
No,
I don't have children. Either, so I don't know. Like, I tried to give comic books to my friends' daughters, and they were like, what is this? And when they left, they just left the comic on the table. They just were not interested,
Yeah, I don't know. I make comics because I'm interested in comics, and I make them for people that are interested in comics. So it's a very boutique thing nowadays, and I love the audience that we still have reading comics. God bless you.
See, I
we would be doomed without you.
Me and Marcus are working together.
Yeah, indeed.
I know that there's a lot of negativity and a lot of karma fighting and stuff, but to me, maybe I'm a Pollyanna, but this has just been wonderful, Well,
fighting comes with the territory as well. I mean, it's just like America. I mean, America didn't become America without a fight. So the new comic book world that we're going into ain't going to happen without a fight. So
right.
That we were born through adversity, and that's how we're going to continue until we figure out what we want.
And here, and here I am talking about being nice and everything. I got into a fight with Ron Mars yesterday, and he blocked me on Twitter.
Who hasn't fought with Ron Mars? Well, me. I haven't fought with Ron Mars.
So I'm going to prepare myself. But like I said, I'm my own worst enemy. Well, guys, I'm feeling the hunger pangs. I got to go.
Same here.
And Kelsey's dying to smoke that cigarette. So let's. I'll just address these last comments. Get you 3-year-olds into comics. That's cool. And I know Marcus has adult kids that read comics. And
that's great.
Yeah.
I would love to go back to San Diego. Maybe I can go sleep on Rich's couch. He lives up there. So
I lived in San Diego for a while. It's like the perfect place. It was just
I love San Diego.
Yeah. It's got the beach, it's got the mountains, it's got the desert, and it's got like the perfect weather. But
Top Gun is there. I mean, come on. It's like one of the great Hotel California.
But you got to pay for it,
Yeah, true that.
So I went to Albuquerque instead.
It's my favorite place in California, San Diego. Yeah.
I lived in San Francisco, and I lived in San Diego.
John Porton, you're not seeing double. We're of the same genome, I think.
So before we go, my beard is
mine is half a warlock high.
That's a valid measurement, half a comic book. But thank you, everybody. I'm amazed that I still got so many viewers after two. But this was so much fun. Look at I'm in the best. I came home from work today in the foulest mood, and I was like, I can't believe Kelsey's gonna come on, and I'm gonna be nasty. But no, I'm gonna go upstairs and be dancing.
Not when we nerd out. We're gonna nerd out.
Awesome. Again, I could talk about comic books with anybody all night long, and this was such a pleasure. Thank you.
That was fun. Thank you for having me.
And before you go, you got an active campaign, Scribbles, on Fund My Comic, and if I can push Fund My Comic, it's made by this guy Luke Stone, who's a comic book fan for comic book fans. Mm-hmm. He's not going to blacklist you. He's not going to shadow ban you. And if you do, he's got asthma, so you could probably fight him.
He's doing good work. Definitely.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's got a good sense of humor. And I think it's important that we're taking over for ourselves and making money for ourselves rather than these corporations that hate us.
Indeed.
So thanks a lot, everybody.
Anything
you want to say, Kelsey? Put you on the thanks a lot, everybody. But I'm going to get going. And oh man, this was please come back. Please come back. I will.
I got to read Warlock.
Yeah, let me know about that. Yeah, that's you got to tell me about that Warlock. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you are down for one of the best comic book stories. Epic. That's a comic book epic. Yes.
Awesome. Right. I look forward to it.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Later.
I'm so happy. Thank you.